Good morning. Good morning. Hey. Good morning, everyone. Maloa. Welcome to Kongakava and welcome to the Australian Government's celebration of International Women's Day 2025. Yay! Yeah, okay, all right. That's good. For those who haven't met me before, which is only a few of you, I think, in the room today, this beautiful room, and I get the view of not just your beautiful faces, but the ocean behind you. My name is Erin Gleeson. I'm the Deputy High Commissioner of Australia to the beautiful Kingdom of Tonga. This is my third International Women's Day in your beautiful kingdom, and I am wearing my beautiful outfit, my only piece of purple in my wardrobe, which was gifted to me by the Ministry of Internal Affairs when I first arrived. So it's really special to be here with you all and to continue that the years I've been here in wearing your attire. So thank you. We're very pleased to have you all here today, and I would like to acknowledge Lord Whawhanua, Lord Speaker, members of the nobility. We have Minister Ana Akaola joining us, and members of Parliament. Your Excellency, my favourite High Commissioner, who also might be my boss, Breck Batley, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Police Commissioner, Attorney General, our good Reverend, and distinguished guests from civil society, from media, from business, and from all walks of life in Tonga. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's really great to have a mix of people here today because the conversation we have to have about supporting women and empowering women and gender equality needs to involve everyone from society. The theme of International Women's Day this year is accelerating action, and the reason that the International Committee chose that theme is because we're far away from achieving gender equality. We estimate it will take about 5 more generations to achieve gender equality in law, in the workplace, through equal pay, and through a range of areas. So 5 generations is too long. But we're not just seeing that there's gaps to be filled, we're also seeing that there's been a decline or a pushback or a slide from what we've achieved so far. So we really need to galvanise and take action to make sure that women have equal rights and access to education, employment, access to healthcare, access to the same opportunities, and to remove any barriers, whether they are physical, attitudinal, to make sure that we can really utilise the half of our world's population's talents. And I'm so glad that Tonga's doing so well. We have such great representation of women in high levels of leadership, running businesses. In our police force, I can see Deputy Commissioner over there, leading our media organisations, in our public service. So it's been a joy working with you all in the last couple of years and supporting your leadership. Australia is really backing gender equality. We are sincere when we say it is a priority for Australia. We fund civil society organisations. We support women with their higher education. We think about the work we're doing really seriously to make sure that we even the playing field and everyone can do their best. We're really excited today to have a very esteemed panel to talk to you about their experiences and their reflections. So I'm not going to talk for much longer because I want to get us moving into that panel session. So I'll just move to logistics now. And the first thing to say is that there are toilets here, and they are that way. The second thing to say is there's delicious food, which is going to be this way after we do our prayer with the good Reverend Ungatea Kata. So with that, I will invite the Reverend to come up, and we'll break for some food and some chats, and then we'll convene in about 15-20 minutes to start the panel. So thank you again all for being here and for joining us for this very special day, and we look forward to the rest of the event. So thank you, good Reverend. Over to you.
Let us pray. Lord, in marking of International Women's Day here in Tonga, Kongakava today, make us instruments of peace. Bless all women who daily strive to bring peace to their communities, their homes, and their hearts. Give them strength to continue to turn swords into plowshares. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. We pray for all women who face prejudice, inequality, and gender disparities. Help us to see and to face the discrimination against women in all the many forms it may take. Where there is injury, pardon, Comfort all women who suffer from the pain of war, violence, and abuse. Help them to become instruments of their own reconciliation and peace. Where there is division, unity. Forgive all women and men who let differences breed hate and discrimination. Let your example of valuing all of creation help us to see that we are equal partners in the stewardship of your world. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is untruth, truth. Comfort all women who struggle in the darkness of abuse, poverty, and loneliness. May we stand with them in light of acknowledging their suffering and strive to remove the burdens of shame or embarrassment. Where there is doubt, true faith. We pray for all women, those of us who live in fear of our husbands, fathers, and forces that control our lives. Help us to be empowered to be our true selves through your everlasting love and faith. Where there is despair, hope. We pray for all women who live in the despair of poverty, violence, trafficking, slavery, and abuse. May the light of your love bring them hope. Where there is sadness, new joy. Help us to see the strength and goodness in all women and men. Transform our hearts to celebrate the love and grace of all people. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Kata. That was a beautiful reflection. So with that, I now invite you all to head to the buffet and grab some breakfast, and in about 15-20 minutes we'll reconvene for the panel discussion. Malo.
Tata fiafiani atale kita ko ia mehe civile mehe va ko civile ai pule anga vinolia o ko mau mata me ato feiva mo man media ia e fa ko fatongia ho ikfafine e ngai la kanga taki e pule anga ka venga ko ni o ngawe ileva e ta fa ki ko civile fai me mo peha o tala noa ko hana i hato ngawe o fe mau ke fra hoko ke ausia ai tamu ako ni o afa manai ka kai fine ko ngawe ileva accelerate action e anga o vakai ke toe tope hepe toe fra tola hi ka kai fine ta fa ki ko ni be ko no fra ai fingawe aki ko hi ke te hake aki e ta fa ko ni ma ai ka kai fine
Malapito tali ta ke fa mali ko ni pe ko fifa feta ke ki fa mali ke ta ko fa ta ma mo ha fa finde ke tau popo i ai tambu mau inga ko ni me ta fa ke civil aviation is mahalo ko mo os me ai pe itonga ni ko foi ta fa ke firma ke ai o popo waki ke au mahalo ko me lahi ke tau hanga o wako i pe mo tau kakai fine tata te fito ke ta fa aki o paila te ensinia o ku kamata ka ko pe ba foi ta fa aki ke te ai o te fakalahi ha to ko ni ki ai mahalo ko po kalama ko ke te whakatokolahi te kakai fine. Whakai ai ke nau tēnā malapa peo whai ngai ngawe whakaofo whakonurolo tonga tokolahi e kakai tangata. Ka kou tui lahi o kiang hei toko lahi aviation industry ke tau tunga whakapaanga i whanua. Pea au whia mau lahi ke te whakatokolahi ange kakai fine. Mo oni toko si ka koe unga koe ngawe lahi ki ai tau te popo ange. Kia te au, if I can do this, other women can do it. Mahalo ko po key message pa iya from our side. Mahalo pa na iyahan hai policy kita popo ang kakai fine. Kita whakapopo ke nau te alhaka hi hai roles ko eni. Ia kahita pa aki ke hepe. Ka koutui i tu e taimini ko whekongalahi ko se kai i ngahi ako ke mamea e lawa ke tau te whakatokolahi me kakai fine tapa ako ni malo pito.
Happy International Women's Day, malo opito vinolia, motok mea mai ke whamatala e tale kita me wa civile ko ia pot ngai pule anga, ko tui e toi ai peha o ekwa fine te nau ka mai ke o atu hawa e wahe, o wheka akpe me ka veinga ko ia o ngawe I leva.
Yes, please join us on. Oh, okay, we can do that. His Excellency, Mr. Breck Bartley. Woo! Mrs. Lucy Tana Latu Eke. Maybe in the middle, yeah. Member for Parliament, Mrs. Dulcie Tay. Tongatapu 6. Lord Speaker, Lord Fafanua. Please don't trip. Minister for Health, Dr. Anna Akaola. And Attorney General, Ms. Linda Folau-Moatui. Why, thank you, sir. So, good morning, everyone, and is this working? You can hear? Great, thank you. We have a very esteemed panel this morning. I will ask the panel a few introductory questions, and we'll have a dynamic conversation. On your tables, there is a notepad with pens. If during this session you'd like to ask questions, we have a couple of runners. So we have Alison. Alison, can you put up your hand? Oh, woo. And Kalepi. Thank you. Just please pass those notepads to those two, and they'll discreetly hand them to me. So I've introduced our esteemed panel. Thank you again for making time this morning. We'll jump straight to it. So the first question I'm going to ask the panel is, with gender equality not on track anywhere in the world, including Australia, what does accelerate action mean to you, and what is the one thing you'd love to see changed? So I will start with Dr. Anna. Do you mind, Minister?
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be chosen to be in this panel, and I thank you so much, Erin, for putting me on the spot first. I went back last night and I was thinking, what does this accelerated action? I've just told my table that I've never gone through through my education, through my work. I never felt that I was discriminated against. So for me, when people talk about this women's right, I have to dig deep and to look around and see what is it that need to be balanced in Tonga. And the first thing that came to me, and Dulcie would probably not like this, but it's the parliament. There are 17 elected from the commoners, and only one, thank God, after so many years, is a woman. And that's 6% of the people of the parliamentarians that are from outside, from the commoners. Only 6%, and 94 is men. When you put together the statistics with the nobles, who will always be men, that's 4%. That's 1 out of 26. I'm very thankful that the present government chose 2 women. It was out of the 4, there were 50%, 2 women, 2 men. So we are bringing in some, trying to slowly close the gap. So with the 2 of us, there would be 10% versus 90%. Women are still losing in parliament. What do we do? After all, 52% of Tonga are women. And when you look around in leadership positions, in CEO levels, in deputy CEO levels, there are more women than men, or almost equal. But why is it that we leave the parliament, the country's leadership level, for only men to decide? Are we still a society that just want to continue with with the status quo? I don't think so. I think our smart women, our passionate women, our women with big hearts should be in parliament. They should be leading our country. And I think if we have more women in parliament, and if we have more women, in PSC, there are more women than men. But if we have more women if we try to not to outdo the men, like in 90% women and 10% men, but at least bring it up so that we can equalize it, we will have a more balanced Tonga, less fighting and disruption. Women know how to settle scores. They have done that at home many times. All they do is bring the men to the side, whisper sweet nothing into their ears, and that's it, you know, all gone. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anna. And I think the first thing to reflect on is it's a privilege for you to have had that experience in your career where you haven't felt those barriers. And for many of us, we might not have, but there are some that have, and it's really important to have talanoa and to listen to others' experiences so we can hear more and open our eyes and take action to remove barriers for other people. And I know you're doing that in the health system, so thank you. On Parliament, we'll get to that a bit later, but what a timely conversation to have with the elections coming up this year, but thank you. I'll continue along the panel this way. So now, Mr. Breck Batley, Your Excellency, I understand that today you are literally 1 year wiser because it was your birthday yesterday. Yeah. So with your extra wisdom that you've gained overnight, can you please share with us what Accelerate Action means to you and one thing you'd love to see change? Malo,
thank you, Erin, and everyone. It's actually just that I time my birthday every year to be in line with International Women's Day. I'll be quick because I'm sure you want to hear from everyone else. I think Accelerate Action is about identifying the obstacles. I mean, because we've been talking about this for decades in many countries, and increasingly so in the last 5-10 years. But it's about identifying the obstacles, the barriers, and also having the hard conversations about that, and about it in each area. And I think in our world of diplomacy, you look at the Australian government and our own diplomats overseas. It wasn't that long ago, probably only 2014, 10 years ago, when we had only 20% women as ambassadors and high commissioners, 20%. But yet we run an aid program that has gender equality as part of the objectives across Southeast Asia and the Pacific that totals over $2 billion that's focused or has some outcome on gender. And yet in our own organisation we could only get to 20% ambassadors that were women. So as I said, it's about identifying the obstacles and having that hard conversation and not procrastinating. And we had a leader in the department, Peter Varghese, who decided that this has to change. It's hypocritical. It's hypocritical to be saying that there should be more empowerment of women in the region when we can't even do it in our own department. And within 10 years, it's around 50%. And there's effectively a target or a band where we expect that between 40 and 60%, either way, will be men and women. So that's what happens when you focus on something and you have a leader that says, let's change. You asked did you ask what the one thing that I'd like to see change? I think it's accepting the economic value of women in the economy. And the World Bank shows that it's around 22% increase in GDP over a period on average for each country. 22% GDP increase. I know women make up a lot of the numbers in the informal economy, 60% in some cases. The pay gaps is enormous in many countries, including in Australia, where we have something like men earn, out of every dollar that men earn, women earn 78 cents. So there's a 22-cent pay gap there on average. So how do we think about how do we get more women into the areas? And I know in some sectors women dominate, and there will be some sectors where men dominate, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But how do we overall think about the economic value of an equal workforce?
Thank you, Your Excellency. Attorney General, same question to you. So reflecting on accelerating action, it's great alliteration, so it's good on that front, but what does it mean to you and what's one thing you'd love to see changed? Malo.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Erin, and good morning, everyone. Very honoured to be part of this prestigious panel. I also hold the same views as the Minister of Health. I never felt discriminated in my starting from education, even up to the workforce. The profession that I'm in, women dominate the legal profession. There are more women than men currently in this profession. But I think as I reflected on this question last night, and in the profession that I'm in, it's quite clear that a lot of issues, it's legislation that actually addresses it. For example, with this issue of not many women being in Parliament, there's been a lot of projects, programs that have been run here in Tonga in relation to balance of power. I know that the long-term, I think, measures that are in place is the educating of women to know or to know that they're of value and that they can do it. But I think in our Tongan way of thinking and custom, it's still quite embedded in our way of thinking, our cultural values, and also our maybe Christian upbringing in which we women, because I think at the end of the day it's the women that don't vote for women. So that is a big issue to be addressed. One of the measures or the issues that I've spoken at in forums in relation to resolving this issue is having special measures in legislation for women. But that, of course, it has been, and as we discussed at the table this morning, some people are against that because that doesn't actually provide merits to women in that they don't take the steps that men take when they campaign. They go and go out and make that effort. They sit long hours at the kava bowl talking and discussing politics. But there has to be a point where we start to try to accelerate this. And if it's legislation, why not? So be it. So I think my views, because I come from that background of legal background, I think legislative measures, I think, would be, in my view, something that will accelerate, especially in this space of having no women in Parliament. But I think in my profession, I think as it stands now, things are okay. I think the men feel a bit threatened in the legal profession against the women. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General. And I'm sure if they feel threatened, there's strong legislation to protect them. So that's great. Lord Speaker, same question to you. Same questions around what does accelerate action mean and what's one thing you'd love to see changed?
Thank you, Erin. And I just want to acknowledge my fellow panelists here and also thank the Australian High Commission for organising International Women's Day here in Tonga. I know you've had a full week program, and this is my inaugural program for this year in regards to women. I think the topic is really important because the essence of wharearea is really talanoa, and when we talk about legislative reform and where the country needs to head, the emphasis or the impetus needs to come from outside Parliament, not from inside Parliament. The parliamentarians are representatives of all of you. They are democratically elected and they go in with a democratic mandate. And so what they bring into the House is supposed to be the voice of those of you outside. And in terms of reform, I believe the crux of the issue is it comes down to whether men and women in Tonga want equality of opportunity for political leadership or equality of outcome. And right now we have equality of opportunity. The constitution since universal suffrage was passed by Queen Charlotte allowed for women to enter parliament. And it wasn't for 20 or 30 years until my auntie, the late Princess Tongatapu, was elected into parliament. And even then, she was the exception to the rule. I mean, she was a princess. So when you look at other legislatures and parliaments around the world, that tends to be the case. It tends to be the daughter of a president or the daughter of a prime minister. Same thing you see in Samoa, in our neighbors. Same thing you see in Fiji. And when the husband of a wife loses her seat in parliament, that's her entry into parliament is on the back of her husband. And this is all proven, the data's there. That is the easiest way for women to get into parliament. But when you get back to equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome, we have to make a conscious decision as a community, as a country. Do we want equality of outcome for our political leadership? Because at that time, we have to attribute the rights that women need to have into parliament. And the only way we can do that, if we don't have the desired outcome, is through legislative reform. And this is when we start talking about temporary special measures. And, you know, we can do that. But is that what we want? Have we engaged our members of parliament? Have we given them the democratic mandate to achieve that outcome? And I think that's the important decision that we need to make. As a member of parliament, since I've been speaker in 2012, I've been advocating for a greater voice, for more inclusion, democratic inclusion in our parliament, not just for women, but also marginalized groups like young people. And we've been advocating for that through our programs, encouraging both women and youth to run for parliament. And so there's been discussions about lowering the voting age so that we can harmonize our legislation regarding young people. And that also applies to women as well. But I think the big question that we have to decide as a nation is, how do we achieve this equality of outcome? That needs to be a decision made for by women. And we all know what the history is. We all understand that the biggest obstacle for women getting into parliament isn't the legislation, it's women themselves. And when you look at why there's such a big social or cultural obstacle to women entering politics, it's not because of the law, it's not because of legislation, it's because of cyberbullying, it's because of cultural practices, it's because of perceptions that women have of themselves. And I think unless you change inside, nothing's going to change outside. And in Parliament, we're responsive to the democratic mandate that you give us. And so far, I've kept a close ear to the ground and I haven't heard it so far. And I've been in Parliament for pretty long. So I think that decision needs to come from you. And in terms of accelerating the action, maybe this is where it's going to start, but the conversation needs to be had before we can do something about it. The elections are coming up in November, and we're going to have, we're encouraging youth, young women and girls. There's going to be a program run by one of our partners, take the lead, and then later on this year we're going to be running a practice parliament for women. And these are platforms that we're making available for women so that they can be encouraged to run in Parliament in our next elections in October and November. Mana.
Thank you. A lot to unpack there. Thank you, Lord Speaker, but really, really amazing work that you're doing. And we've got Elizabeth Kite in the audience who's part of Take the Lead, and looking forward in May to the She Leads Parliamentary, the other? Yeah, great. Mrs. Eke, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm also happy to be part of this panel this morning. And going back to the question, accelerate action, coming from a grassroots background, I guess from us we see action as something that is out of reach. We see it as policies and legislations that are just out of reach for us.
the women back in the community I'm in, we have a lot of talented women, but I'm also thankful to NGOs, non-government organizations, for bringing down legislations, policies, empowering women in our level, the grassroots level and the communities, for them to be able to educate themselves. But I guess we still have a lot of women out there who needs to come out of their comfort zone. They very talented, skillful as well in what they do, whether it's weaving or going out to see to other community outreaches as well. But for them to come out and to bring them to be at the forefront, they're more at a shy level and they would always retreat. So for me, accelerate action is bringing down the legislation to a more grassroots level where people are inclusive and everyone, especially women who are hardworking out there, but their voices are not heard. For a community where I come from, which is constituency number 5, just beside constituency 6, women work very hard in the community, but their voices are not heard, and they're more shy to be up at the forefront. So accelerate action to me is that something that comes down to that level to bring them out, because you never know in the future. 10 years from now, if you just train them, empower them, they'll be sitting in parliament or cabinet just like our two representatives here. So it's just a matter of us trying to get there, hold their hands and walk with them through this whole overwhelming policies and gender equality that we need to empower them with. So one of the things that I would like to see as well is still push the education. Education, everything here is all based on merit, whether you're a woman or a man, but you get to that position through merit. So you can only get through merit if it's education. So I'd like to emphasize it so that education comes down to the level of women. We have women who are dropouts. The reason being because there's a broken family. Mother passed away and there's no one to look after the younger siblings. So it's that kind of empowering that reaches down to the very lowest level of the community that I would like to see change. And education as a package still stands and takes a person far and above a lot of things in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Lusitania. Really, that's really reflective of, we were both at an event last night, Tonga Women in ICT had a fantastic panel, and throughout the panel last night, all the women talked about the power of education, and they all talked about these really strong networks that had held them and supported them through their careers. And what you were talking about holding those women's hands and helping educate them, bring awareness, but support them is so true, and that solidarity is really important. So thank you so much. Dulcie, over to you. Is your microphone working? No, I don't.
Can you hear me?
No.
Thank you. All right, I acknowledge the presence of God in our presence today. And I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Erin, for including me. Thank you to Australia and the support that you've gone out to support gender equality. The question of acceleration action, and the next one, what is one thing that you have? Plenty. Yes, I believe right from the start, from Dr. Anna from Health and throughout the panelists and what they have voiced out, And in addition to that, may I say that I come from a community-based intervention, in the sense that you all know, as you are all aware, I came through just after my husband was unseated in Parliament. But still, of all the reasons for a woman to come into Parliament, it comes down to the decision that a woman makes. Yes, we have all the women educated up to the highest of level of education, but would they make the decision to make a difference? As I have had 2 years in my constituency of 16 villages, for 2 years I have looked at the women. We have a council of women for the whole of the constituency. They are represented from all the villages. I think we have to go back to the ground community and change their mindset. Just a few months ago, BOP took me to USB and to have a panel with the educated students, and that's what they said: sorry, women have to stay home from that. And so I have to go back to the community. You have to go back to the community, to the grassroots, and change their beliefs and their thoughts. Today, not only are we celebrating International Women's Day, but also it's a Women's Day. It's a World Day of Prayer. And I'm sure this morning almost all of us were in church praying for everyone, for the world. I believe that we have to go back to the community, because not only are women not voting for women, but it's women who criticize women. So where is that faith and that belief in our God that we believe that leads Tonga? That's what I believe. We have to go back to the community, to your churches, to your women's group, to your little school, primary school, in your villages, and change their mindsets. And say that although you are going to run against me, I support you as a woman. And so women, that's what I believe. We not only should we vote for each other, but we should also not criticize each other. We are people who speak out loud. We are people who love to speak. And I implore you to speak well against each other. In Parliament, if I may come back to the question, because it's about me in Parliament, I think I've just thought about it many times, but like a woman from coming from a family and not included in political talks a lot of the times, I think we should give women their own ministry so that they look at all the women issues, etc. I think it should be reflected on a budget that should reflect the population, which is 50% or 51, 52, yeah. women. And yes, that's what I think, as well as supporting my speaker on the temporary special measures to have just a tryout of at least one term, and we see how women do. I am very happy that the 2 cabinet ministers were appointed, because that would mean that 12 ministers have quite a better percentage than 1 in the 17 from the people's representatives. And so I think we can accelerate this action throughout these ways. And I would like to just say that Tongatapu, because they are really supporting, we have got a group of women supporting this evening's WCC's celebration tonight. And also, if you might look forward to the end of the month, Tongatapu women will be up in the media supporting International Women's Day in support of all women. Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds exciting. I'm going to stay with you, Dulcie, actually. Keep that microphone. I think really, really beautiful reflections, and there are people on the live stream and people at home, or some women who may be thinking that this might be their year to step up and maybe run for Parliament. And I think we'd love to hear from you just what your experience has been in Parliament and what advice you would give to women or young women, older women, any women that's thinking about running.
So I'm starting the second round.
Yeah,
Okay. It has been a challenging role, 2 years now. Number one, I was a trained teacher. So I have to run around and follow up what I'm doing in there. Secondly, with all the men and with all the nobles there, the tables, I was brought up as a Tongan child. So my respect to the nobles, you would see me not go against the nobles with my respect for my husband and for the men. You wouldn't see me, hear me, rather. I try to bring points, talk about it impersonally as issues, not and I think it is one of the values that women can transcend, is to talk about issues instead of personal attacks. And yes, it still is very challenging, and I'm mindful that there is the vote that is coming up in November, and I have to do my campaign. But I think a woman that knows herself and what her target is, what she's there for, her role, is important for women and girls who look at trying to come into Parliament. Yes, you can make it. As a woman, yes, that's what we're known for. We talk too much in the koka'anga, and we put down this woman, and we put down this woman, and then, like for myself, you come in, and then your whole pages of your life is put up there and criticized that she was this and this and this, and she can't do this. Ladies, come and try it. You have been trained well as up to CEO levels. You can do it if you stay with the issues that are good for you, the issues that will be good for families, the issues that will be good for Tonga. And that's what our role is for our children. Men cannot be comparable to you at home in raising up a family. And that's where you start. I think the ladies and the girls who are looking to come into Parliament, you have to have the big heart of embracing all the different views of other people, but you're staying with your own views and what you're there to support and to work for. Privileged, Mr. Speaker, to have traveled the world over on issues on women. And I still think we have to go back to the mother and what she wants to see in her child and what she wants to see in a world of educated girls and what she wants to see a successful woman to be in the future. And I'd like to just end with the emphasis that this month is a month that supports, that reminds, well, for my FWC congregation, we are looking at emphasizing the death and the resurrection of Christ this month. Well, the end to the first week of April. And I'd like to just say, remind us that one of the 7 words that came from the Lord on the cross is that, woman, behold your son, as he spoke to Mary, the mother, and to John. Woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother. And I think Tongans should stay different from the rest of the world because we believe that Christ is the guidance and the only light that will take us through, no matter whether it is in Parliament, it is in your work, what NGOs, whatever you do, Christ would stay be the light. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are you ready for round 2, Minister Health? You're okay, right. So, Minister, you have spoken already that you've come from a very technical medicine-focused background. This transition to a ministerial role in Cabinet, really keen to hear your reflections on how that transition's been and what motivated you to take that next step in your leadership career. And I'd also like you to reflect on, in the health sector, how can we better support women, particularly young women, to take control of their health and their bodies? Thank you.
Thank you. When I was approached to be the Minister of Health, I paused for a little while because I looked at it and I thought, this shoe is too big. How can I fit into it? And then I thought, why not? You know, I've been educated enough. I have had leadership training. It's for medical administration, but it's leadership training. So I thought, why not? Bring it on. So I went. I never, ever thought in my life that I would be in this position. But when I'm here, during my time as a medical doctor, as a medical superintendent, there were some issues that I wanted to push. This is my time. So I thought I'll just take the opportunity and I will bring what is it that I thought that we in health should be doing to help our people who are dying of NCD. In these 9 months, I've already told the Prime Minister, I'm very happy that he's open to my suggestions, that like what Dulcie is doing, that we are bringing health to the community. And I'd like to thank DFED because they're helping us as well to bring health to the communities. And I'd like to thank Dulcie because she's going to bring health to the community as well by working through her women's groups. So this is how I am going to do it. I am going to work in the community with every man, woman, child, everyone, because health is not ours. So my big vision for Tonga, this is my vision, that Tongans will be their own doctors. That Tongans will know the food that they eat, that the food that are not good for them, like the cake that we just were served. No, that lying around in bed instead of walking or jogging or being physical in the garden is not good for you. This is what I meant by you being your own doctor. You know that even though you think you're healthy, you have to go to the health center. You have to go to your doctor and get a checkup. This is my vision for Tonga. Coming back to women and children, what do I want? It should start from pregnancy. We need to empower our women to know when to be pregnant. And it is only through education that we can do this. That pregnancy shouldn't be an accident. And this way, there would be a very good start for the child. You have to go and see the doctor as soon as you find out that you're pregnant. Life starts in utero, inside the mother. If the mother is healthy, the child will grow up healthy. And so it goes on and on. It's womb to tomb. Mother, when your child is born, take them for their vaccinations. There are programs that the Ministry of Health has designed and we have adopted so that we will end up with a healthy population. There is a new vaccinations that's coming in. It's for prevention of cancer of the cervix, and it's done at 10 to 14 years old. Unfortunately, some mothers don't want their children to be protected against vaccination. And I wonder why. Why? Why? Is it because you don't have any trust in us? Maybe we haven't done much to earn your trust, but I'm asking you. I am asking the people of Tonga. We in health are trying our best to reach out to you so that you can have the best and enjoy the best health you can. And when we grow up, we can grow up gracefully, grow old gracefully. We don't have to I mean, this is my vision. It might be too much of a vision, but at the end of the day, you're the one who's responsible for your health. We will come and fix you when you don't look after you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And on behalf of the Australian Government, I apologise for serving you cheesecake this morning. I did not know, I did not put that through you, Minister, for clearance, so I apologise.
Erin, there was fruit, wasn't there?
There was fruit, and everyone's doing 10-star jumps together afterwards, and some burpees too. No, thank you, Minister. Really important messages there about being your own doctor, and I'm taking that on board too. I'm going to pass to Attorney General to my right. I'm also really curious about your leadership journey, because you have held several positions of leadership formally in the legal sector, not only here in Tonga but in the region. I know you worked in Ramsey, and I think we were in Solomon Islands at the same time, actually. So I'm really curious about your reflections of your leadership journey, what helped you, how you've evolved as a leader. I think I'd love to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erin. Yes, I think as I reflect back on my life, I entered the public service as a very shy and very, in my view, when I entered into the legal profession, it was, if I can use the phrase used by Dr. Anna, it's by accident. I didn't want to come back and teach at Queen Salote College, where my mother would have loved me to come to, and so I applied for a scholarship and got the law scholarship. But anyway, I entered the workforce back in the days when the legal profession was predominantly males. The office I joined was a small office. There was 5 of us, and at that time there was 4 males and there was 3 females. So, but as I said, the legal profession has grown, and there are more females as time went on. I then, due to economic reasons, applied for a job in the Solomon Islands, as you've alluded to, in 2008, and was part of the Ramsey program, trying to assist the Attorney General's office in the Solomons, and so I was an advisor there. There were 3 advisors that were that had been engaged by Australian government. I was one of the 3, and I was the only female. The other 2, my 2 colleagues, was one from Australia and one from Fiji. I then journeyed, came back to Tonga, and very fortunate to get a job at the Ombudsman's office, and I worked under my old boss, Aisia Taufa'ahau, who was, when I was at the office of Crown Law, he was the Solicitor General, then went on to Attorney General. I was very fortunate also to be selected to be one of the judicial appointment and disciplinary panel committee of His Majesty's Privy Council. Again, I was the only woman there amongst 3 males. And I'm also part of the Judicial Committee, which is commonly known as the Law Lords. In that forum, I'm the only woman, and two other males. I also sat on the Electoral Commission office, that also was predominantly male. So just reflecting back on my journey, I must say that there were times of challenges, especially being the only woman in these committees and in these forums, where I never failed to put my views to these male-dominated forums. There are times my views, it's always considered by these other males, but if they have other views, we discuss, and then we come to a conclusion on what the prevailing view should be. And that does not necessarily mean that my view wins all the time, but I make sure that I put to them the arguments that I have and the views that I have. And then that recommendation or that conclusion is then referred to another body, which is Privy Council, and Privy Council makes the final decisions on that. So it's not, I can say upon reflection that there are challenging times when, as an only woman in these forums, but the gentlemen are always very, very polite, knowing that I'm the only woman, and saying, okay, your views are considered and noted, and there are times I ask that I refuse to sign the papers because my views is not the same, or I don't agree with the views that are provided, and they respect that. And there are times that are decisions that are made from the Law Lords Committee or the panel, in which I I declare my conflict, or I declare that I do not agree with those views, and the space in which my name is on does not have a signature. And I'm glad that they respect that, and that's taken up right to the top, the Privy Council, where Privy Council probably looks at it and thinks, what is this, this female member doing? But nothing. I mean, I've been a member of these these committees for the last 5 years. I haven't been asked to leave or been asked to resign, and I think that is a good thing. They do respect my views, and like I said, it's not easy at times, but I have to consider what's good for, in my view, for the country as a whole. And in most of these deliberations we have, it involves legal issues. And but so far, despite those small things that I've spoken about, all in all, things have worked out well during my career. And just going back to my team back in the office, I've got my Solicitor General. We work so well together. And the males in our office are my DPP, Director of Public Prosecution. We also work very well in relation to work ethics and work processes within the office. So all in all, my legal career hasn't been that challenging. And I also have a vision for the office, like the Minister has alluded to, taking the law to the community. Since I've joined the office, for the past years that Law Week has run, I think it's approximately 17 years now. When I came into the office in 2019, I decided to take the law to the outer islands. In the past, it's always been based here in Tonga, and yes, I know that there are radio programs, but it's not the same. Having face-to-face meetings with the community, hearing what they want in regards to the law, and also seeing how we can make the law more accessible to the community. We've done Hapai Vava'o Ewa. We're still trying to find a good time to go to the Niwas, which we will do before the end of this financial year. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come with you to the Niwas. I love the Niwas. Go Niwas, yes. Lord Speaker, I know that you're a young person and will always be a young person at heart. But more seriously, the work you're doing with youth has been incredible, and love to hear from you what you're hearing through your work about how youth are perceiving gender equality for their generation and what you think that means for the future of Tonga.
Thank you. That's such an easy question. Because officially this is my last year of youth, so I think like break.
Lord Speaker, what does that make me?
Yeah. So really, we've had a few engagements with the youth, both in our work for illicit drugs and also inter-school fighting. Our advocative work that we do in partnership with Take the Lead, Young Girls and Women in Parliament, and also our work with Tonga Youth Parliament. And yesterday, I had a group out of Tonga Youth Parliament 2024 come consult me on Tonga Changemakers. This is a new youth program that the youth from TYP 2024 have come together, and they came with a list of everything they want to do, and it's from climate change to advocacy to, it's so broad. And I said to them, you guys need to focus and, find something and just, start working on that, whether it's on a program level or an advocacy level. So I gave them homework yesterday, and they're going to come back. But in terms of how the youth perceive youth empowerment and gender equality, it varies. And the reason why it varies is because their level of understanding varies. And I think that's where our role as an institution comes in. We have a role to play in educating the population in civic education, in their civic rights, and also in advocating for greater responsibility and engagement. And in terms of equalizing opportunities for us specifically in Parliament, that means having a greater voice in Parliament. And given that I've been the youngest member in Parliament since like 2009, and that's not a good thing because I've been waiting for someone younger to come into the House, and so I think there's an opportunity here for younger people to be elected into Parliament in October or November when we have our next general elections. And it won't take much to be the youngest person in Parliament. You can be in your 30s and you'll still be the youngest person in Parliament. And I think that in terms of that, in terms of the demographics in Parliament, I'm not ageist, but we have too many old people. And by old, I mean like we can't even give them health insurance because they don't qualify. So that's sort of like the age that we have. And, you know, it's not unique to Tonga, the same thing all across the world. Parliament, naturally, because it's the decision-making body of a country, you want to send your elders there. But because it's a representative body, you also need to represent your population as well. And if it's a young population, our Parliament should be young as well, because that's reflective of the young voice and what they want. And that goes for women as well. If there's 52% women in population, that should be represented in our Parliament. So, yeah.
Thank you. So another very important body in Tonga is the civil service. So the largest employer in the country, more than 5,000, I think, Tongans work for the civil service. And Lusitani, you've had a very distinguished career with working in and for the Public Service Commission. I'm really interested in how you see that we can use the public service to change ideas about gender equality in the workplace, and what ideas you have to accelerate action through our civil service. Malo.
Thank you. 25 years ago, I entered the public service. It was all male dominated, except for the one exception of the legal profession, where we had a female CEO. The rest were all men. My first encounter was, I was the second cohort in the Tonga National Form 7, which we set the New Zealand bursary. I applied for a scholarship, and I was told to go for an interview. When I walked into the room, there were 3 men sitting behind the table as panels. And the 3 men I would remember very well. They were Alexis Fa from Ministry of Agriculture, Devita Tapavalu from as Secretary for Finance, and Kerepi Marakaufaki as from the PSC. Right, and you can imagine me being very young and my first to ever encounter such a room with all these elite men. I already thought of myself as withdrawing from the whole process. But getting in there and going through, I thought I would be intimidated by them because they were all men. But no, they took me through the process, and the one thing that I went with me is that I belittled myself because they don't know me. I come from a very humble background, and but they were there to hear for what I had to sell from myself. So they took me through the process. I enjoyed it very much, which was very different from the minute I walked in. So that was my first encounter with men dominating the environment that I was in. But it helped me and it built me to be more resilient, to more of that to come in the future. So I graduated, came back to the Ministry of Agriculture, which was again dominated by by men. Two female that I would recall was Eleanor Amanaki, who was a deputy CEO at the time, and Evelini Mila. They took me under their wing. To me, sitting back, it was very important the kind of support that you are able to get in a place at a time. So they took me in, and unfortunately, I only survived 1 year in the Ministry of Agriculture, and then from there I moved on to the Central Planning. Central Planning was different. It had a different environment. We had a CEO who was a male, and we also who was Paula Lavula at the time. Then we had Paulo Kautoke as a deputy, Tatafu Moeaki. So I worked under them, but there were a lot of female there as well. We had Dr. Caroline Fusmalohi, we had Viso Halavaitau, we had also Baldwin, in which I also worked under their wing. They took me in, they walked me through the whole process, and that was one of the things that I would proudly sit back and say that they were very helpful. So it had to come from a woman to come and hold my hand, walk me through the whole process. Being a very new graduate, you just think you just come to the office and do this and that and then you leave. No, there was a lot to achieve. And from these professional women, it was an eye-opening to me. Moving from there to the Ministry of Finance, it was also male-dominated again. But we had a few. We already had a woman who was already head of Treasury at the time. But it was still dominated by men. But then further on, I spent most of my years in finance, but after finance, I had a family, so I had to move out because it was too demanding. You couldn't juggle a family and the demands of working in the Ministry of Finance. So I moved on to Public Service Commission. At the Public Service Commission, it was, so that was like after 20 years. It was very refreshing to see that I was behind the panels. So Public Service Commission, you hire and fire and discipline the public service amongst other responsibilities. But we had, but it was good to also be part of a panel in hiring most of the civil service. It was mostly women. So what I'm trying to say here is that 25 years after entering the public service, it is just so good to see. We have a lot of women CEO. We have a lot of deputies. I ended my career when with a CEO of the public service. A CEO was a female, and all of the deputies, including me, were all female. It was only later then that a male came from the military to join us at the deputy CEO level. So it has really improved, and part of the policies is that there's equal opportunity for men and women. So you are allowed to apply, but it's always based on merit. So education, I would like to go back to education. So for you to reach to the level where Adulsi is, you just have to build yourself, get your network, and also build yourself in such a way that your community have confidence in you so they could vote for you. So you start off from where, when I got back as a graduate, going back to my village, they already expect you to be a jack of all trades. From asking for school fees or bus fare, or asking funds for a low account for their weaving, or getting them registered for some kind of a group. So it's that kind of thing that you start off with them at a lower level, try and understand where they are, and then walk them through as well, because that is how I went through as well. So the network as well is very important of how you build your support as well. The churches, they've supported us very well in building our characters as well. So the highest level of integrity, that is one of the things that is being preached, and you try and uphold those kind of Christian values wherever you are. But as a woman, just to go back to your question, Erin, I am proud to say that in the service, everyone has equal opportunities, you can apply, but then we go back to education where everyone has the equal opportunity to be educated so that they can confidently rise up the ladder and to reach to where Dulcie is. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that education, when we talk about gender equality, we also need to think about our young boys, and we know that our young boys are dropping out, and women are outperforming boys in education at the moment in Tonga. So when we talk about gender equality, it's not always about just women. It's about how do we keep that equal opportunity and equal support through all areas. So we're running out of time, so I'm not going to go into that, but I would love it if we could. But anyway, next I'm going to pass to His Excellency Breck. So we know that to achieve gender equality, it's not just having women talking to women, it's about talking to everyone in society. It's men talking with women, it's men talking with men, it's women talking with men. So I'd love to hear from you about how can we engage male advocates, and what you see as more that we can do. Thank you.
Thanks. It's obvious, isn't it? Leadership on gender equality can't just be by women. I mean, it's a fact. If we want change, it has to be by both men and women. And I think Australia's recognised that in our most recent gender equality strategy, where we talk about we're doing this for the benefit of all in the community. This is not just for the benefit of women, this is a benefit for all. So when I talked earlier about national economic value from women, that's about helping the whole country. And when we talk about women's equality and women getting ahead, that shouldn't be seen as a zero-sum game where men lose out, women gain. So it's the way we talk about it, I think, really matters. The other thing that Australia's really focused on is starting young. Domestic violence is horrible. I think it's something like 60% across the Pacific. Girls and women have experienced domestic violence at the hands of their partner or their family or a family member. I hate to say it, but it's similarly bad statistics in Australia. And so how do you change that? And how do you change a perception? It's where you start with an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old boy. And so we have ads on television in Australia now to encourage boys, their friends, to call out the 12-year-old boy and say that's not okay. You just abused or called names to that girl which was unnecessary. You just hit her on the shoulder, that's unnecessary. So calling it out early, identifying it early. The other thing is how we talk about issues and the impact of issues. How men talk about women's issues. As just one example, last week in Australia, there was a radio host, a popular radio program, and he very much criticised the Australian women's soccer team, the Matildas, and how boring they were and how horrible they are to watch on television, and it went on and on. Everyone's entitled to their view, absolutely. But as men, we also have to think about what's the impact of things we say. And so that radio host lost their job. The CEO of the company decided that's not okay. Young girls or women, mothers were calling in saying, my 16-year-old daughter was in the car and heard that. What does that say to her about her role in society, about her role in sport, about her opportunities? So just thinking about getting men to think about what they say and how they say it and the impact of that. The other one is forcing men in leadership, I guess, to talk and act at all levels. And the Lord Speaker talked about Tongan change makers. How great. Getting 25-year-olds thinking about these sorts of issues. The final thing I'd say is that there should be programs. In Australia, there's male champions of change. And those men are acknowledged for the work they do. This is the head of our police force, the head of our military, the head of our big business, working together to create change in their own organisations. And I think, just to finish, Erin, on that, I think we should acknowledge the men in the room. And this is how you get change. I think there's 5 or 6 here today. You're not included, Lord Speaker. There's 5 or 6 here that came here today. I know we invited mostly women, so don't make too much of a judgment. But thank you. Thank you for coming. All 5 of you, thank you.
Yeah. Hello? Is it working? Yeah. Thank you. And we see all of you equally. We are running up against time. I'm so sorry, and I do have some questions from the audience which you have touched on. Some of them were around how do we change mindsets around the role of women and voting women into Parliament. We've heard about the importance of women supporting women. We've also heard about the importance of working at the grassroots level and bringing and empowering women up that way. So I think we have touched on that quite a bit. I'm going to say there are questions in here about women's access to land. I think we probably need more time to get into that. The question here is around it being a barrier, especially to economic empowerment of women. So I just want to acknowledge that question was asked, but unfortunately we have run out of time. I'm going to ask our amazing panel just to leave us with one message they'd like to share or reflect on from the session this morning. And I will start to my left with Dulcie. If you wanted to just share one more reflection around the discussion today or gender equality before we wrap up. Malo.
Thank you, Erin. I thought I was really finished. But the good thing is somebody said, "What are you talking about Jesus and his statements from the cross?" Well, already, but it's great to be in Parliament because you can make some change. You have a lot of influence, but you have to be smart about it so that it will be. You won't waste your time, but you will achieve whatever. And also, if I may say, clarify to this whoever person was asking me about the statement of Jesus. Mother, take care of your sons and your children, and children or men, take care of your mothers. Without each other, there is no other. Yes, no progress, no success. So the campaign's coming up. I'm hoping to see more women from the 17 constituencies running for to be Parliament members. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. My final thoughts. Success in life are two things: characteristic and your skills. Characteristic, build your integrity, your moral support, moral principles that you stand for, and you build your skills, your technical background, and that will make you a whole person to be able to run for Parliament, like what Dulcie was saying. So in a nutshell, I would say we look forward to women with integrity, with moral principles that are very strong and in upholding it. And we also, it also gives us, it goes back to women as well. As mothers, we upbring and nurture our children for those to characterize themselves, to uphold the Christian values. Malo.
Hello. Yeah. So, if we go back to accelerated action, how do we accelerate gender equality, gender equality and opportunity and outcome? I think when we're looking at cultural and societal change, change happens at home. So, before we can start looking at making these drastic steps, we need to accept it at home. You have to change at home in the relationship dynamics, the power dynamics between husband and wife, between mother and child. That change in attitude initiates at home. Without that, you can't expect anything to change in society and culture. That's where it instigates, that's where it comes from. If you're genuine about it, then we'll actually experience it in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I think what I'd like to leave with you all is, as women, don't underestimate yourselves. When you're given the opportunity, seize that opportunity, go for it, and with your skills, with your education, with your big hearts, and all that's within you as a Tongan woman, you can achieve whatever you would like to achieve. As they say, the sky is the limit for us women. Thank you.
Well, as Tonga's biggest development partner and biggest security partner, our message is very simple. We're there for you on this issue. And I'm sure I say the same for New Zealand and the Brits and everyone else. We're there for you. The role of development partners are critical. We're there. In Australia, we have targets in our programs. We have our own responsibility. 80% target. All our programming must have a gender effective outcome. 80% of anything we do. Anything. It's critical. And we also have to have the programs, the flexibility there. Australia Pacific Women Lead, $170 million program across the entire Pacific. It's flexible. And why is it flexible? Because we have to be ready to back ideas with new prime ministers, with new young leaders, with new opportunities. It has to be flexible. And I want you to know that wherever there's momentum, Australia will back it. But that also is a co-responsibility. We talked about, Honourable Dulcie talked about a Ministry of Women. Australia funds positions in the ministry. We fund them. It'd be great if the Tongan government also started funding more of those disability and gender advisors and the like. That's the commitment. That's a joint commitment. And when you talk about child protection policies and these sorts of things, let's work on it together. So, as a donor and representing other donors, if I can boldly do so, is that we're all here to back the momentum and ideas you've got. Thank you.
Education. Mothers, you need to educate your children, particularly your daughters. Girls, you need to go to school, learn as much as you can. Vocational, university, whatever. Get the financial freedom so that you don't get pushed around when you're dependent. Thank you.
Pretty good, hey? Can I get another round of applause for our esteemed panellists? I've really treasured the conversation today. I think when we talk about leadership, we're talking about three things: a character of a person, their values, and their skills. And I think this panel has shown a variety, like how they all hold those three things to themselves, but also how they show those in different ways. So thank you for sharing your leadership journeys and styles with us. It's been a pleasure. And as His Excellency said, we are backing you, and we are genuine in our support for this issue and for leadership on this issue, but we don't take it for granted. So I wanted to say thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for letting us provide this platform. Thank you for letting us have a robust conversation and an honest conversation. At the heart of our partnership with Tonga is a healthy, robust partnership across many sectors and in many ways. So but we don't take it for granted, and we thank you for coming today and for sharing and for listening. And at the end, this was all about starting a conversation. So I hope it's been those in the audience and those online have new ideas in their mind and new conversations they want to take forward. So to finish, I'll wish you all a happy International Women's Day. I will say a special acknowledgement of all the fantastic women out there that have achieved so much. And it's our great honour to work with you all and to back you in what you do. So malo pito, and I'm getting in, what does that mean, Kalepi? We are getting it, I don't know, how is that going to work, Kalepi? How is that going to work? Do we just, how about, we'll come down there. Stay where you are. Sorry? We will, thank you. A man is interrupting me. Can you believe it? I'm joking. I'm joking. He's trying to make me do my job better. I'm joking. It was just a joke. All right. Good Reverend, may I ask you to please share a final prayer, and then there will be a group photo which I will get clear instructions on very shortly. Malo.
it's always good to be the church minister because you have the last say. So I just before I say the keresi, I understand that the topic is accelerating action. And I was thinking, Aaron, you know, when you pass the ball, there's a rugby or a netball, tala group, you pass the ball with your own 2 hands, it's 2 meters. Sometimes when you want it to accelerate, you have to kick the ball. Yeah? And so I know you're not championing violence, but sometimes you have to kick the thing to make it go quicker and further. So I'm just giving it to you out there, decision makers, acceleration. Sometimes when you have your little son, you sometimes have to kick a little bit to make him know that this is the role for him to support his sisters and his mothers and his father. Thank you, tau keres. Pea koe keresa e ko sisu kalaisi mo ofa e o tua koe tamai, mo whea he lau maria manoni, no whetek mau tol ko toa peo na hiri ka whai peo tai ngata e meni.
If everyone could just stay where they are, the panel's going to just be seated in front of you and we'll get one group photo. I'm sorry we've run over time, but I know it's been worthwhile. Malo.